Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. First, I want to thank everyone who came out and joined us on the live stream on Friday night. We had a great time with a great crew of panel and audience members. Our next stream will be in January, so stay tuned for that. If you're looking to support the channel further, then you can head on over to the store and start browsing and or become an OC member. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now sit back and relax as we begin with today's episode. This first one comes from a Reddit user called RaccoonOdd1929. This one occurred in October of 2023. We're going to be heading to Leflore County, Oklahoma, and it's close to Kavanaugh Hill. Yeah, so my wife thinks I'm crazy. I had my first encounter, so to speak, about 3 hours ago. This is in southeast Oklahoma, not far from Kavanaugh Hill. I had to come back from our storage unit getting some winter clothes out to bring home. As I returned home, I pulled into our driveway, killing the lights as I always do. I parked at the far side of the circle drive opposite the house. There are some shrubs, tall grass, grown up, etc. on a burn pile next to the circle drive. Then it opens up with a couple of pecan trees and flowering producing brush of different sorts. And then about 15 yards beyond that is a barbed wire fence. So I pulled in and park. I get out and I smelt an awful kind of wet dog skunk smell that I didn't think of too much about because we've been smelling this smell on and off for the last few weeks, and I thought we just had a skunk around. The smell was strong, so I thought a skunk was close by, but it wasn't like overpowering or anything, so it wasn't a big deal. Well, I walk around the front of my truck, and as soon as I reach to put my hand on the door handle, I hear an extremely low growl, not like a dog growl. It was lowered almost like a hum, with a very deep, low, raspy voice sound, which was a completely different sound I've never heard before. As I hear this, the hair on my neck and all over my body stands on end, and I get goosebumps bad. I froze briefly. I lived in the country all my life, and I've never heard anything like it by an animal. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a very large silhouette about 12 to 15 yards from me, just on my side of the fence behind the first pecan tree. It was an extremely wide silhouette, and if I'm guessing, about 8 to 9 feet tall. Just a massive figure, but I couldn't make out anything else. As far as certain features, it was in the dark and slowly in a single fluid motion eased back further and more behind the tree. I about crapped myself, being quite honest, but I acted like I didn't see it. I opened the door and grabbed the clothes, and when I shut the door, I noticed the figure was gone. I walked on around the truck and made my way inside. Now, I am of sane mind as the next person, and am not on drugs, nor have I ever had any alcohol beverage that evening. My wife asked me what was wrong, and I just said nothing until we came to bed, and then I told her, and she all but laughed at me. But here we are, she's asleep, and I'm typing this up while I still can't believe what happened tonight. I just don't know what to make of it. I'm still pretty freaked out over it as well. This legit just happened, and the first time ever to me. Thoughts? The date is April 2006. We're heading to Panola County, Texas, and the nearest town or city is Carthage. A friend and I were bow fishing on the Sabine River. We had been drifting downstream all morning looking for fish to shoot with our new bow fishing bows and gear. We would use the trolling motor to guide us and the current to pull. Sometime around lunch, 12 p.m., we heard some noise in the tree line on the north side of the riverbank. We didn't think much of it. There are deers and wild hogs all over this area. A few hours later, we came around a bend of the river and looked up on the bank and saw something moving. I never said anything to my friend because I was unsure of what I had seen. As we drifted on down, I saw a large dark figure walking through the tree line, and I turned to find my friend looking at it as well. We never said a word, we just watched. As we continued to watch this large creature move slowly through the trees, I got a better view. I was looking at the back of this creature, and it was large. My friend and I are both 6'3" and 250 pounds. We were pretty good size ourselves. This creature was at least 7 feet tall and a good 350 pounds. It had very dark brown hair on its body, maybe 2 to 3 inches long. Its head had a longer hair and it was almost black from what I could see. It wasn't moving very fast and looked to be having a hard time walking. We watched it for what was about 2 to 3 minutes until it was out of sight. We quietly started back upstream. We didn't want to piss it off. The bank on the other side was only about 4 to 5 feet in height, and we were only within 100 yards. We talked about it after we got the boat loaded and started back for home in the truck. We both had agreed that we had seen the same thing and couldn't believe it. This one was submitted by Aaron, and this one occurs in June of 1979. We're headed close to the area of Martin River Provincial Park in Ontario. Hi Venka, I saw info about your upcoming live stream, and it just occurred to me that with your familiarity with Ontario, you may be able to help me figure out what happened to me once in 1979 and possibly 1981. Are you familiar with the Robbie Aho disappearance, where his folded clothes and belongings were found near Posniak's? I stayed at Posniak's Lodge in 1979 and may have been within a few feet from whatever took Robbie. I had another encounter with something real big right off Martin River 2 years later that I can share. If you are familiar with this area near Martin River Lodge, the second incident was near a rock outcrop with a huge circular piece of rose quartz. I think it is so large that you can see it quite a ways offshore. I have thought about David Paulides in the past, and you just reminded me again. I watched his films. The reason I was also thinking of you is because I was wondering if cryptids are responsible for some of the missing people. Not killing immediately or at all, but abducting. Or maybe there is a connection between some humans and cryptids in a yet unknown symbiotic relationship responsible for some of the missing people. I will make this as short as possible. I was alone in a cabin at Posniak's at night. I came with some friends short notice in June of 1979 before the season started. The owners welcomed us when we got there early evening and told us they had other plans and had to leave us there alone for one night since we were the only ones there. We had driven around 11 hours straight. I was so tired, so I went straight to bed. My friends left for a few hours to eat and explore. I was alone at around 9 o'clock, which is a guess. I was woken up by a loud footsteps on the porch, immediately followed by a heavy pounding on the door. I remember waking up to the pounding on the door that paralyzed me with fear because I knew I was alone and the door was unlocked. Young and dumb. I just sat on the bed, unable to move. I heard nothing for about 20 or 30 seconds. Then the door was pounded on again, even harder. I still couldn't move. After an eternity, which was still only about 20 seconds or so, I heard heavy footsteps on the porch and whatever was there left. It didn't occur to me until years later that whatever was on that porch watched everyone leave and knew that I was alone. Why it never came in is my main question. Have you ever heard of anything like that in your area? I'm just wondering if Robbie Aho came across something like what knocked on my doors years ago with a much worse turnout. Thank you, Aaron. This one's going to be the last one for today. It comes from a Reddit user called HMCID, and this one takes place in March of 2023. We're going to be going to Emekalola Falls State Park, Georgia. So I've been sitting on this experience for a while. I guess just not wanting to make a big deal out of nothing. But after reading some of the stories here on this other related sub, I would really like an answer to what I experienced. Back in March of this year, I went camping with a friend, my boyfriend, and 3 dogs. My friend slept in his tent with his dog, and I slept in my tent with my 2 dogs and my boyfriend. My friend's tent was about 30 feet away from ours, and we were camping in the North Georgia mountains off of an old Forest Service road. We were right next to a creek. For context, I'm an experienced backpacker, and I'm familiar with the unusual nighttime sounds like rustling in the leaves, sticks breaking, cicadas, etc. I have a lot of experience camping by myself, so it's rare that I get spooked out by anything other than other humans nearby, as I'm aware of the dangers of traveling solo as a woman. However, this particular night, I wake up in the middle of the night with a sense of absolute dread I've never felt before. I check my phone and it's about 3:34 a.m. I really had to use the bathroom, and I was debating on whether I wanted to try to put on my hiking boots and venture outside to go, or just try and hold it until daytime. I didn't want to wake up the dogs because if they heard me putting on my boots, they'd likely want to go outside to go to the bathroom as well. I'm still in the tent. That's when I noticed it. It's almost like a hum, but not in the pleasant way where it's a tune or anything like that. It's a low-pitched hum that was reverberating throughout the campsite, forest, and through my body. It had 2 tones. It started with a relatively high-pitched and would switch to a relatively lower pitch after a period of time. Then it would start over without a break in the sound at all. It wasn't soft either. It felt like it was covering the entire wooded area we were in. It didn't sound like an animal, a person, a machine, or anything that I've ever heard. At this point, I absolutely cannot hold off on the bathroom trip any longer. I quickly put on my hiking boots and quietly tell the dogs to stay put. My boyfriend is still sleeping. I unzip the tent and I go outside, and the entire campsite was covered in this spooky ash fog. But it felt like it was my vision that was foggy, not the actual air. I couldn't see a damn thing. The 2-tone humming then got louder. I do my business maybe 5 feet from the tent. Sorry, but there's no way I was going to be venturing any further than that. I quickly nope the hell back in my tent and bury myself in my sleeping bag with a sweatshirt over my head to try and drown out, ignore the humming. The dogs raised their heads and growled a few times throughout this experience, but that isn't unusual for them when camping. I never saw any figures or light in the woods, but I also was not looking for them, and I was trying to ignore the entire experience. Does anyone know what this humming could have been? Okay, that's going to end today's episode, but wow, we had some unusual encounters today, which I hope you all enjoyed. Some of these folks were looking for opinions as to what they could have encountered, so please be sure to leave your comments below. This week, we had a subscriber join the OC Members Club, and if you want to learn more about the OC membership program, please check out the membership video to learn about the perks, or head on over to the Communities tab on my channel. It's time to thank the current members. So thank you to Jim, Teresa, Elizabeth, and Joe in Alaska. Thank you so very much for your support. If these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.